Anna stood beneath the harsh fluorescent lights of Dubai International Airport, her hands trembling as she clutched a bouquet of white lilies, Emra's favorite, or so he'd told her. The arrivals board flickered with flight numbers and destinations. But Anna's eyes were fixed on just one: Istanbul to Dubai. Landing at 18:45. Her heart pounded in her chest. A wild, hopeful rhythm that drowned out the airport's constant hum. She smoothed her dress for the 100th time, glancing at her reflection in the glass, searching for reassurance. Was her lipstick smudged? Did she look as nervous as she felt? She tried to steady her breathing, reminding herself that this was the moment she'd been waiting for. The moment her life would finally change. Around her, families reunited with laughter and tears. Lovers embraced, children squealed with delight. Anna watched them, imagining her own reunion, the way Emre would sweep her into his arms, whispering Turkish endearments in her ear. She pictured the life they'd planned together. Sunlit mornings, shared secrets, a love that would heal the wounds of her past. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity, but Anna clung to hope, refusing to let doubt creep in. Then, her phone buzzed in her purse, a sharp, insistent vibration that jolted her from her daydream. She fumbled to answer, her hands slick with anticipation. The screen flashed with Emre's name. Relief flooded her, but as she pressed the phone to her ear, a chill ran down her spine. His voice was strained, panicked. Nothing like the warm, confident man she'd come to trust. "Anna, there's a problem. I need your help. Please, it's urgent." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. The laughter and joy around her faded into a distant echo. Anna's mind raced, torn between fear and the desperate hope that this was just a minor setback. She had no idea that in the next few hours, everything she believed about love, trust, and safety would be shattered. She thought she was meeting the love of her life. Instead, she was about to lose everything. Anna had always been a romantic at heart. Even as a little girl, growing up in a small English town, she'd believed in fairy tales, the kind where love conquers all. Where heartbreak is only a prelude to happily ever after. But life, as she'd learned, was rarely so simple. At 52, Anna found herself standing at a crossroads she'd never imagined. The ink on her divorce papers was barely dry. The echoes of her 25-year marriage still haunting the quiet corners of her home. Her children were grown, scattered across continents, busy with lives of their own. The house that once rang with laughter and chaos now felt cavernous. Every room a reminder of what she'd lost. The end of her marriage had not been sudden, but rather a slow unraveling, 1,000 tiny disappointments. Words left unsaid, affection that faded into routine. When her husband finally confessed to loving someone else, Anna felt as if the ground had opened beneath her feet. The betrayal stung, but what lingered was the emptiness, the sense of being invisible in her own life. Friends tried to comfort her, urging her to get back out there, but Anna recoiled at the thought. How could she trust again? How could she risk her heart when it had already been broken so completely? Yet, as the months passed, loneliness crept in like a persistent fog. Evenings were the hardest. She'd sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the world go by, longing for someone to share the silence. She missed the small intimacies, a hand on her back, a shared joke, the comfort of knowing someone was waiting for her. The ache was deep, but so was her hope. Anna wanted to believe that love was still possible. That her story wasn't over. It was her daughter Sophie who first suggested online dating. "Mum, you deserve to be happy," she'd said, her voice gentle but insistent. "There are good people out there. You just have to give it a chance." Anna hesitated, wary of the horror stories she'd heard: catfishing, scams, heartbreak. But Sophie helped her set up a profile, choosing photos that captured Anna's warmth and wit. They laughed over the awkward messages, the clumsy pickup lines. The men who seemed more interested in her age than her soul. Still, Anna persisted. She told herself she was just looking for friendship, maybe a companion for coffee, or a walk in the park. But deep down, she yearned for more, a connection that would make her feel seen, cherished, alive. Each new message brought a flutter of anticipation, a spark of hope. She was careful, of course, wary of anyone who seemed too eager, too perfect. But the loneliness was a powerful force, and Anna found herself drawn to the possibility of something real. What Anna didn't know was that the world of online dating, for all its promise, was also a minefield. Behind every charming profile could lurk deception, manipulation, even danger. The internet was full of predators who preyed on vulnerability, who knew exactly how to exploit hope and loneliness. Anna had read the warnings, but she believed she was too smart, too cautious to fall for a scam. She trusted her instincts, her ability to read people. She wanted to believe that love, even in the digital age, was worth the risk. As she scrolled through profiles late at night, Anna imagined the life she might build, a second chance at happiness, a partner to share her dreams. She didn't see herself as a victim, but as a survivor, someone brave enough to open her heart again. What she didn't realize was that her longing, her hope for a new beginning, made her vulnerable in ways she couldn't yet understand. In her search for love, Anna was about to step into a world where trust could be weaponized, and where the cost of believing in fairy tales could be devastating. It was a rainy, Thursday evening when Anna first saw Emra's message. She was curled up on her sofa, the soft glow of her tablet illuminating the living room as the rain tapped gently against the window. The notification chimed a new message on the dating app. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the screen, before curiosity got the better of her. "Hello Anna, I hope this message finds you well. I couldn't help but notice your beautiful smile. It brightened my day." His profile photo was striking. A man in his early 50s, with dark expressive eyes and a warm, easy smile. He stood in front of the Bosphorus, the Istanbul skyline glowing behind him. His profile was written in perfect English, sprinkled with just enough Turkish phrases to seem exotic but approachable. He described himself as a businessman, a widower, someone who loved poetry, travel, and good conversation. Anna felt a flutter of excitement. He seemed genuine, cultured, and, most importantly, interested in her. She replied, cautious but intrigued. "Thank you, Emra, that's very kind. I hope you're having a good evening." 2. What followed was a flurry of messages that felt, to Anna, like a breath of fresh air. Emra was attentive, asking about her day, her favorite books, her dreams for the future. He shared stories of his own life in Turkey, his childhood in Izmir, his late wife's love of music, his travels for work. He sent photos of his morning coffee, overlooking the sea, of bustling markets and quiet gardens. Each message was thoughtful, never rushed. As if he truly cared about getting to know her, Anna found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She told him about her children, her love of gardening, her fears about starting over. Emra listened, really listened, responding with empathy and understanding. He remembered the little things. The name of her dog, her favorite flower, the way she took her tea. He made her feel special, seen, and valued in a way she hadn't felt in years. Their conversations quickly moved from the app to WhatsApp, then to long late-night phone calls. Emra's voice was deep and soothing, with a gentle Turkish accent that Anna found comforting. He spoke of his own loneliness, how he'd lost his wife to cancer 5 years ago, how he'd thrown himself into work to cope with the grief. He confessed that he'd almost given up on love. But something about Anna had reignited his hope. "I feel like I've known you forever," he told her one night. "You understand me in a way no one else does." Anna's heart swelled at his words. She felt a connection that was both exhilarating and terrifying. She began to look forward to his messages, to the way he made her laugh, the way he seemed to know exactly what to say when she was feeling low. He sent her poems, some famous, some he claimed to have written himself, about love, loss, and second chances. He called her my angel, my light, and told her he couldn't wait to meet her in person. There were, of course, small things that didn't quite add up. Emre's work seemed mysterious. He said he was an import-export consultant, always traveling, always busy. Sometimes, he would disappear for a day or two, only to return with apologies and stories of business emergencies. He never used video calls, claiming his phone's camera was broken or that he was in meetings. When Anna suggested they meet halfway, perhaps in Europe, he insisted Dubai was the perfect place, neutral ground. Easy for both of them. But Anna brushed aside these doubts. She told herself that everyone had secrets, that Emre's life was simply complicated. She wanted to believe in the story they were building together, in the possibility of a love that could heal them both. Her friends expressed concern, warning her to be careful, but Anna defended Emre fiercely. He's different, she insisted. He's been through so much. He understands me. As the weeks passed, Emre became her confidant, her daily companion, the person she turned to with her hopes and fears. The loneliness that had once felt suffocating was replaced by anticipation, by the thrill of something new. Anna felt alive again. Her world colored by the promise of a future she'd almost stopped believing in. What Anna didn't realize was that hope, when mixed with longing, can sometimes blind us to the truth. And as she fell deeper under Emre's spell, the line between fantasy and reality began to blur, setting the stage for a heartbreak she could never have imagined. From the moment Anna woke each morning, Emre was there, her phone lighting up with his messages, before she'd even opened her eyes. "Good morning, my beautiful Anna," he'd write, attaching a photo of the sunrise over the Bosphorus. "I wish I could share this moment with you." His words wrapped around her like a warm embrace, filling the empty spaces in her heart. It was as if he knew exactly what she needed to hear. Exactly when she needed to hear it. The intensity of Emre's affection was dizzying. He called her his soulmate, his destiny, the woman he'd been searching for all his life. He spoke of fate, of the universe bringing them together after so much pain. "I believe we were meant to find each other," he told her one night, his voice low and sincere. "After all we've both been through, don't you think we deserve happiness?" Anna, who had spent so long feeling invisible, was swept away by the certainty in his words. She began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was worthy of the kind of love she'd only read about in novels. Emre painted vivid pictures of their future together. He described lazy mornings in a sunlit kitchen, traveling the world hand in hand, growing old side by side. He sent her links to luxury apartments in Istanbul, photos of seaside villas, even menus from restaurants he wanted to take her to. "I can't wait to show you my city," he'd say. "We'll walk along the water, eat baklava, dance under the stars." He spoke of meeting her children, of blending their families, of building a life filled with laughter and adventure. Every detail was carefully crafted, every promise grander than the last. Anna found herself daydreaming about this new life, her loneliness replaced by hope and excitement. She started making small changes, buying Turkish cookbooks, learning a few phrases, even researching flights. She shared her dreams with Emre, and he responded with enthusiasm, encouraging her to believe in their future. "You are my queen," he'd write. "I want to give you the world." But beneath the surface, there were moments that gave Anna pause. Sometimes Emre's declarations felt almost too perfect, his devotion too intense for someone he'd never met in person. He seemed to know exactly how to soothe her insecurities, how to make her feel special and needed. When she expressed doubt or fear, he would double down, sending her long, heartfelt messages about his own heartbreak, the loss of his wife, the loneliness that had haunted him for years. He told her about nights spent staring at the ceiling, wishing for someone to share his burdens. "You saved me, Anna," he'd say. "You brought light back into my life." Anna's friends grew concerned. They pointed out how quickly things were moving, how Emra's promises seemed almost scripted. Be careful, her friend Julia warned. It's easy to get swept up in the fantasy. But Anna bristled at their skepticism. She trusted her instincts, and Emra had never asked her for anything, no money, no favors, just her time and affection. She told herself that real love sometimes moved fast, that maybe she was just lucky to have found someone who understood her so completely. Still, there were subtle red flags. Emra's life remained a mystery. He was always traveling, always busy, his stories sometimes inconsistent. He avoided video calls, claiming his phone was old or that he was in meetings. When Anna pressed for details about his work, he'd change the subject, steering the conversation back to their future. But each time doubt crept in, Emra would overwhelm her with affection, sending her poems, love songs, and photos of places he wanted to take her. The highs were intoxicating, the lows quickly smoothed over by his charm. For Anna, the fantasy became a lifeline. She clung to Emra's promises, allowing herself to believe that happiness was finally within reach. She ignored the unease that sometimes flickered at the edges of her mind, choosing instead to trust in the story they were writing together. What she didn't see, what she couldn't allow herself to see, was that love, when wielded as a weapon, can be the most dangerous illusion of all. And as Emra's grip on her heart tightened, Anna's world began to revolve around a man she'd never truly known. It was late one evening, the kind of night when the world feels quiet and full of possibility, when Emra's message arrived and changed everything. "Anna, I can't wait any longer," he wrote, his words pulsing with urgency and longing. "Let's meet. Let's start our life together. I want to hold you, to look into your eyes, to finally make all our dreams real." Anna's heart leaped. She read the message over and over, hardly daring to believe it. After weeks of late-night conversations, whispered promises, and shared secrets, the fantasy was about to become reality. MRE suggested Dubai, a city he described as magical. A place where East meets West, where their love could begin on neutral ground. He painted a vivid picture. The two of them walking along the glittering marina, sharing candlelit dinners, exploring the city's vibrant souk and golden beaches. "Dubai is perfect," he insisted. "It's safe, beautiful, and easy for both of us to reach. I want our first meeting to be unforgettable." Anna swept up in his enthusiasm, barely hesitated. The idea of meeting in such a glamorous, faraway place felt like something out of a movie. It was bold, romantic, and just a little bit daring, everything she'd been missing in her life. When Anna told her friends about Emra's invitation, their reactions were immediate and skeptical. Julia, always the pragmatist, frowned. "Dubai, are you sure that's a good idea? You've never even met this man in person." Another friend, Claire, was more blunt. "Anna, you barely know him. What if he's not who he says he is?" But Anna brushed off their concerns, her mind already racing with plans. She told herself that her friends didn't understand, that they hadn't seen the side of Emra she knew. He was kind, attentive, and had never once asked her for anything. He wanted to meet her, not just chat online forever. Wasn't that what everyone said? You should look for someone willing to take a real step forward. Emra's excitement was infectious. He sent her links to hotels, suggested itineraries, and even offered to book a private dinner cruise for their first night. "I want to make this special for you," he said. "You deserve to be treated like a queen." Anna found herself swept up in the details: what to pack, which dress to wear, how to style her hair. She imagined the moment they would finally meet, the way he would smile when he saw her, the feeling of his hand in hers. Every doubt, every warning from her friends, faded into the background. This was her chance, her moment to step into the life she'd always dreamed of. As the days passed, Anna's anticipation grew. She booked her flight, reserved a hotel room, and began counting down the hours. Emre sent her messages every morning and night, reminding her how much he loved her, how much he was looking forward to their future. "This is the beginning of everything," he wrote. "I promise you, Anna, you will never regret this." But beneath her excitement, a small voice whispered caution. She silenced it, telling herself that happiness required risk, that she couldn't let fear hold her back. After all, how many people got a second chance at love? How many women her age were offered a storybook romance, a chance to start over? Anna refused to let doubt steal this opportunity. She couldn't risk missing her one chance at happiness. What Anna didn't realize was that sometimes, the most beautiful dreams can hide the darkest realities. And as she packed her bags for Dubai, her heart full of hope, she had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. The days leading up to Anna's trip to Dubai were a whirlwind of anticipation and nervous energy. She threw herself into preparations. Determined to make everything perfect for her first meeting with Emre, she spent hours shopping for new clothes, searching for the right dress that would make her feel confident and beautiful. She bought a silk scarf in Emre's favorite color, a small bottle of his preferred cologne, and a new suitcase, one that felt like a symbol of her new beginning. Each purchase was a small act of hope, a way of telling herself that this was real, that happiness was finally within reach. Anna shared her excitement with anyone who would listen. She posted photos of her new outfits on social media, captioning them with playful hints about her upcoming adventure. Friends and family commented, with heart emojis and well wishes, though a few sent private messages urging her to be careful. Anna brushed off their concerns, choosing instead to focus on the thrill of what was to come. She even started a travel journal, jotting down her dreams for the trip, the places she wanted to visit, the memories she hoped to make with Emre. But as the departure date drew closer, small cracks began to appear in the fantasy. Emre, who had always been so attentive, started mentioning unexpected problems with his travel plans. At first, it was a minor issue with his passport renewal, nothing to worry about, he assured her. Then, a sudden business emergency in Istanbul forced him to delay booking his flight. Anna felt a flicker of anxiety, but Emre was quick to reassure her. "Don't worry, my love. I will be there. Nothing will keep me from you." A few days before Anna's flight, Emre's messages took on a new urgency. He explained that he was having trouble transferring money for his ticket due to a banking issue. "It's so frustrating," he wrote. "The Turkish banks are making it impossible. I just need a little help to get the ticket sorted. I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I arrive." Anna hesitated, her stomach twisting with unease. She'd always promised herself she would never send money to someone she hadn't met. But Emre's desperation was palpable, and he played on her emotions, reminding her of all the plans they'd made, all the love they'd shared. "Don't let this small thing ruin our future," he pleaded. "We've come so far." Against her better judgment, Anna agreed to help. She wired a modest sum to cover the ticket, telling herself it was just a temporary setback. Emre was effusive in his gratitude, sending her voice messages filled with promises and affection. "You are my angel, Anna. I can't wait to hold you in my arms." The relief in his voice soothed her doubts, and she convinced herself that she was doing the right thing. Still, the tension lingered. Emre's travel updates became increasingly erratic. One moment, he was on his way to the airport. The next, he was delayed by another business call. Anna's friends grew more vocal in their concerns, but she defended Emre fiercely, insisting that love required trust. She clung to the belief that everything would work out once they were together. The night before her flight, Anna barely slept. She packed and repacked her suitcase, checking her documents and itinerary over and over. She imagined the moment she would finally see Emre, the way he would smile at her from across the arrivals hall. As she boarded her flight the next morning, Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and dread. She told herself that all the obstacles would melt away once they were face to face. What Anna didn't know was that the countdown to her dream was also the countdown to her nightmare. And as the plane lifted off the runway, she was flying straight into a storm she never saw coming. Anna's heart fluttered with anticipation as the plane touched down in Dubai, the city's glittering skyline visible through the small oval window. She pressed her face to the glass, searching for a glimpse of the world she'd only seen in Emra's photos and descriptions. The airport was a blur of movement and color travelers from every corner of the globe. The hum of languages she didn't recognize, the scent of coffee and perfume mingling in the air. Anna felt alive, electric with hope, her nerves tingling as she made her way through customs and collected her luggage. She checked her phone. The moment she was through, her hands trembling with excitement. Emra's last message was waiting for her. "I'm almost there, my love. Just a few more minutes." Anna smiled, clutching her bouquet of lilies, her mind racing with images of their first embrace. She found a spot near the arrival's gate, her eyes scanning the crowd for a familiar face. Every time the door slid open, her heart leaped, only to fall again when it wasn't him. Minutes turned into an hour. Anna's excitement began to fray at the edges, replaced by a creeping sense of unease. She checked her phone again, no new messages. She tried to call Emra, but the call went straight to voicemail. She told herself he was probably stuck in customs, or maybe his phone had died. She paced the arrivals hall, her heels clicking on the polished floor, her bouquet growing heavier in her hands. Another hour passed. The crowd thinned as families reunited and travelers hurried off to their destinations. Anna's phone finally buzzed. Relief flooded her as she saw Emra's name, but the message was different this time, short, frantic, full of typos. "Anna, I'm in trouble. They stopped me at immigration. I need your help. Please, don't leave." Panic prickled at the back of Anna's neck. She tried to call him again, but there was no answer. Instead, another message arrived, this one even more desperate. "They say I need to pay a fine. I don't have enough cash. Can you help me? I'm so scared, Anna. Please, I need you." Anna's mind raced. She'd heard stories of travelers being detained for paperwork issues, of unexpected fines and bribes. She wanted to believe Emra, to trust that this was just another obstacle they would overcome together. But fear gnawed at her, whispering that something wasn't right. She texted back, asking for details, for proof, for anything that would make sense of the situation. Emra's replies were erratic, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry, always urgent. "They won't let me call anyone else. You're the only one I can trust. Please, Anna, I need you now more than ever." Anna's hope battled with her growing dread. She tried to reason with herself, to remember all the moments Emra had been there for her, all the promises he'd made. She told herself that love meant standing by someone in their darkest hour, that she couldn't abandon him when he needed her most. But the longer she waited, the more isolated she felt. The airport, once full of promise, now seemed cold and indifferent. The lilies in her hand began to wilt, their petals bruised and drooping. As the hours dragged on, Anna's fear grew. She called the airport's information desk, trying to find out if anyone matching Emra's description had been detained. The staff were polite, but unhelpful, unable to share any information. Anna's phone buzzed again, Emra, begging her to send money to a bank account he provided. "It's just a small amount," he insisted. "Once I'm out, I'll pay you back. We'll finally be together." Anna stood at the edge of a precipice, her hope and love for Emra warring with the cold, creeping realization that something was terribly wrong. She wanted to believe in their story, in the future they'd planned, but the evidence was mounting against him. Still, she hesitated. Torn between the woman she'd been hopeful, trusting, open-hearted, and the woman she was becoming. Battered by doubt and fear, as the sun set outside the airport's glass walls. Anna was left alone in the harsh fluorescent light, her dreams unraveling one desperate message at a time. She clung to the hope that Emra's next call would bring good news, that this nightmare would end with a joyful reunion. But deep down, she knew that the life she'd imagined was slipping further and further out of reach. Anna's hands shook as she entered the details into the money transfer app, her mind a blur of worry and hope. She told herself this was just a temporary setback, a test of their love, something they would laugh about one day. The sum Emra requested wasn't small, but it was just within reach, enough to sting, but not enough to ruin her. She rationalized it as a loan, a gesture of trust, a way to prove her commitment to the man who had promised her the world. As she hit send, a wave of relief washed over her. She messaged Emra, "It's done. Please let me know as soon as you're free. I'm waiting for you." Minutes passed. Then an hour. Anna sat in the airport cafe, her untouched coffee growing cold, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Finally, a message arrived. "Thank you, my love. You saved me. They say it will only be a few more minutes. I can't wait to see you." Anna's heart soared. She imagined Emra rushing through the arrival's gate, his arms open wide, gratitude shining in his eyes. She smoothed her hair, reapplied her lipstick, and tried to steady her nerves. But the minutes stretched into hours, and Emra didn't appear. Instead, another message came, this one more frantic than before. "Anna, there's another problem. They say the payment wasn't enough. There are extra fees. I'm so sorry, my love. I hate to ask, but can you help me again? I promise, this is the last time." Anna's stomach twisted. She hesitated, her mind racing with doubts, but Emra's desperation was palpable. He sent voice messages, his voice trembling with fear and frustration. "I'm so embarrassed, Anna. I feel like a failure. Please, don't give up on me. I need you." Anna's hope warred with her growing sense of dread. She thought of all the late-night conversations, the promises, the dreams they'd built together. She remembered the loneliness that had haunted her before Emra, the way he'd made her feel alive again. She told herself that love meant sacrifice, that she couldn't abandon him now. Against her better judgment, she wired more money, each transfer chipping away at her savings and her sense of security. The requests didn't stop. Each time Anna thought she'd done enough, Emra found a new reason to ask for more. There were unexpected taxes, legal fees, a bribe for an official who could make the problem go away. The amounts grew larger, the explanations more convoluted. Anna's anxiety deepened, but Emra's messages were relentless. He alternated between pleading and guilt-tripping, reminding her of their future, their love, the life they were supposed to start together. "If you really love me, Anna, you'll help me. I would do the same for you." Anna's friends, who had been following her journey from afar, grew alarmed. Julia called, her voice tight with concern. "Anna, this isn't right. You need to stop. He's manipulating you." But Anna couldn't bring herself to believe it, not yet. She clung to the hope that Emra was telling the truth, that all of this would make sense once they were together. She was embarrassed to admit how much she'd already sent. Ashamed of her own desperation, as the days passed, Anna's world shrank to the size of her phone screen. She barely slept, barely ate, her thoughts consumed by Emra's plight. She stopped answering calls from friends and family. Afraid of their judgment, afraid to face the possibility that she'd been deceived. She told herself that everything would be worth it if Emra just walked through those airport doors. But the reunion never came. Instead, Emra's messages grew colder, more impatient. He began to blame Anna for the delays, accusing her of not caring enough, of not trusting him. "If you loved me, you'd do this. Why are you making this so hard?" The words cut deep, fueling Anna's guilt and confusion. She sent one last transfer, emptying her savings, her heart pounding with fear and regret. Then, suddenly, silence. Emra stopped responding. His profile photo disappeared from WhatsApp. The number she'd called 100 times was no longer in service. Anna's messages went unanswered. Her calls met only with a cold, mechanical beep. Panic set in, followed by a crushing sense of betrayal. She scoured the internet for any trace of Emra, searching for explanations, for hope, for anything that would make sense of the nightmare she'd stumbled into. The truth dawned slowly, painfully. Emra was not who he claimed to be. The man she'd fallen in love with, the man who had promised her forever, was a ghost. A carefully constructed illusion designed to exploit her hope and vulnerability. Anna's world collapsed. She was left alone in a foreign city, her savings gone, her heart shattered. The shame was overwhelming. How could she have been so blind? How could she have let herself believe in a fantasy? Anna replayed every conversation, every message, searching for the moment when she should have known, the red flags she'd ignored. She blamed herself for being naive, for wanting too much, for trusting a stranger with her heart and her future. The pain was raw, a deep ache that settled in her chest and refused to let go. She felt foolish, exposed, and utterly alone in the end. Anna's greatest loss wasn't the money, it was the trust she'd placed in someone who never existed. The hope she'd allowed herself to feel, the belief that she was finally worthy of love. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound, leaving scars that would take years to heal. And as she sat in her hotel room, staring at the empty screen, Anna realized that the story she'd believed in was nothing more than a cruel illusion, a cautionary tale. She never wanted to be part of. Anna sat on the edge of her hotel bed. The city lights of Dubai, flickering through the curtains, casting long shadows across the room. The silence was suffocating. Her phone, once a lifeline to Emra and the world she thought she was building, now felt like a weight in her hand. She stared at the blank screen, willing it to light up with a message, a call. Any sign that this nightmare could still be undone. But there was nothing. No new messages. No missed calls. Just the echo of her own heartbreak, reverberating in the emptiness. She tried to call Emra again, her fingers trembling as she dialed the number she knew by heart. The call rang once, then twice, before cutting off with a cold, automated message. This number is no longer in service. Anna's breath caught in her throat. She tried WhatsApp, Facebook, even the dating app where they'd first met. But Emra's profile had vanished from each one, as if he'd never existed at all. The realization hit her in waves. She had been ghosted, abandoned, left to pick up the pieces of a life that had never truly belonged to her. Panic set in, sharp and relentless. Anna's mind raced with questions and regrets. How much money had she sent? How would she get home? What would she tell her family, her friends, the people who had warned her to be careful? The shame was overwhelming, a heavy cloak she couldn't shake off. She replayed every conversation, every warning she'd brushed aside, every moment she'd chosen hope over caution. The weight of her choices pressed down on her, making it hard to breathe. She wandered the hotel room in a daze, her suitcase still half packed. The lilies she'd brought for Emra, now wilted and browning in the corner. She hadn't eaten in hours, her appetite swallowed by anxiety. She tried to distract herself by turning on the television. But the cheerful voices and bright images only made her feel more alone. The city outside her window was alive with possibility, but Anna felt trapped. A stranger in a place that had promised so much and delivered only heartbreak. The financial reality of her situation began to sink in. Anna checked her bank account, her hands shaking as she scrolled through the transactions. The numbers didn't lie, her savings were gone, drained by wire transfers and empty promises. She felt sick, the enormity of her loss settling in her stomach like a stone. She thought of the bills waiting for her at home, the mortgage. The small nest egg she'd worked so hard to build after her divorce. It was all gone, vanished into the hands of a man she'd never truly known. Desperation clawed at her. She considered going to the police, but what would she say? She imagined the look on their faces, the questions, the judgment. Would they believe her? Would they help? Or would they see her as just another foolish woman, blinded by love and loneliness? The fear of being dismissed, of being blamed for her own pain, kept her rooted in place. Anna's isolation deepened with every passing hour. She wanted to call her daughter, to hear Sophie's voice, to confess everything and beg for comfort. But the shame was too great. How could she admit that she'd fallen for a scam? That she'd ignored every warning? That she'd risked everything for a man who didn't exist? She imagined the disappointment in her daughter's eyes, the pity in her friends' voices. The thought was unbearable. Instead, Anna withdrew further into herself. She stopped answering messages from home, letting her phone buzz unanswered on the nightstand. She avoided the hotel staff, too embarrassed to ask for help. She wandered the city in a fog, the sights and sounds of Dubai blurring into a backdrop for her grief. She watched couples laughing in cafes, families exploring the souk, and felt like a ghost. Invisible and untethered. Nights were the hardest. Alone in her room, Anna replayed every moment of her relationship with Emre, searching for the truth she'd missed. She wept for the woman she'd been before, the hopeful, trusting soul who believed in second chances. Now, all she felt was hollow, her dreams turned to dust. In the depths of her despair, Anna wondered if she would ever recover. She questioned her own judgment, her worth, her ability to trust again. The world felt dangerous and unfamiliar, every kindness suspect, every promise a potential lie. She was lost, adrift in a foreign city, her heart and her future stolen by a man who had never truly existed. And as the days passed, Anna realized that the hardest part of betrayal wasn't the loss of money or love, it was the loss of herself. For days, Anna drifted through Dubai, in a haze of grief and humiliation. But eventually, the numbness gave way to a quiet, simmering anger. She couldn't let Emre, or whoever he truly was, be the final word in her story. One morning, after another sleepless night, Anna forced herself to sit at the small desk in her hotel room and open her laptop. Her hands trembled as she typed "romance scam help to buy" into the search bar. Desperate for answers, for any sign that she wasn't as alone as she felt. The results were overwhelming. Article after article described stories eerily similar to hers. Women from all over the world, lured by promises of love, only to be left heartbroken and penniless. Anna's shame began to shift into something else, a sense of solidarity, a realization that she was not the only one. She found online forums filled with women sharing their experiences, their pain, and their hard-won wisdom. Some had lost more than Anna, some less, but all carried the same scars. Reading their words, Anna felt a flicker of hope for the first time since her world had collapsed. Determined to take action, Anna made her way to the nearest police station. The building was stark and intimidating, but she steeled herself and walked inside. She explained her story to the officer at the desk, her voice shaking but clear. To her surprise, the officer listened patiently, nodding as she described the messages, the money transfers, the sudden disappearance. "You are not the first," he said gently. "These scams are very common. We will take your report." Filing the report was both painful and cathartic. Anna handed over screenshots, bank records, and every scrap of evidence she had. The process was slow, and the officer warned her that the chances of recovering her money were slim. Still, Anna felt a small measure of relief. She had done something. She had refused to let her silence be her shame. Back at her hotel, Anna reached out to one of the online support groups she'd found. She posted her story, her hands shaking as she hit send. Within minutes, messages of support and understanding poured in. Women from around the world offered advice, comfort, and, most importantly, the reassurance that Anna was not to blame. "You are not stupid," one woman wrote. "You are human. You wanted to believe in love. That's not a crime." The support group became a lifeline. Anna learned about the tactics scammers used, the love bombing, the urgent requests for money, the emotional manipulation. She realized how carefully she had been targeted, how her vulnerability had been weaponized against her. The knowledge was painful, but it was also empowering. She began to see herself not as a victim, but as a survivor. Anna also contacted her bank, hoping to stop any further transfers and report the fraud. The process was frustrating, filled with paperwork and long phone calls, but each step was a small act of reclaiming control. She reached out to the British consulate, who offered her guidance and support, helping her navigate the legal and emotional aftermath. Slowly, Anna began to piece herself back together. She started journaling again, writing not just about her pain, but about her resilience. She called her daughter, finally sharing the truth. Sophie's response was not anger or disappointment, but love and concern. "Mum, you're not alone. We'll get through this together." With every conversation, every act of reaching out, Anna felt her strength returning. She was still wounded, still grieving, but she was no longer isolated. She had found a community, a voice, and a sense of purpose. The fight for justice was far from over. But Anna had taken the first steps toward healing and toward reclaiming the parts of herself that Emra had tried to steal. The moment of truth came quietly. Not with a dramatic revelation, but with a slow, painful acceptance that settled over Anna like a heavy blanket. Sitting alone in her hotel room, the city's neon glow flickering through the window, she scrolled through her phone one last time, hoping, against all logic, for a message from Emra. But there was nothing. No apology, no explanation, not even a final goodbye. Just silence, as complete and final as a slammed door. Anna stared at her bank statements, the numbers stark and unforgiving. The money was gone, her savings, her security, the nest egg she'd built so carefully after her divorce. She felt the loss in her bones, a cold ache that radiated through her chest. But even deeper was the loss of trust. The shattering of the story she'd told herself about love, about second chances, about who she was and what she deserved. For a long time, Anna wept. She wept for the woman who had believed in fairy tales, for the hope that had carried her across continents, for the loneliness that had made her so vulnerable. She wept for the future she'd imagined, for the laughter and love that would never be. The pain was raw, but as the tears fell, something inside her began to shift. She realized that her vulnerability, the very thing that had made her a target, was also a source of strength. She had dared to hope, dared to love, dared to risk her heart again after so much loss. In the quiet aftermath, Anna began to see herself with new eyes. She was not just a victim, but a survivor. A woman who had faced heartbreak and humiliation and was still standing. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her grief, but also the stirrings of resilience. She reached out to her daughter, to her friends, to the support group that had become her lifeline. She told her story, not with shame, but with honesty and courage. Anna knew the road ahead would not be easy. The scars would linger, the trust would take time to rebuild. But she also knew that she was not alone. She had found a community of women who understood her pain, who had walked the same path and emerged stronger. In their stories, she found hope not for a perfect ending, but for a new beginning. As Anna packed her suitcase to return home, she looked in the mirror and saw not a woman broken by betrayal, but one remade by truth. She had lost much, but she had also found something precious. The knowledge that even in the darkest moments, she could choose to begin again. Returning home, Anna felt like a different person, older, wiser, and marked by an experience she could never have imagined. The familiar sights of her quiet neighborhood were both comforting and bittersweet. She moved through her days in a kind of daze at first, haunted by memories of Dubai and the man who had never truly existed. But Anna was determined not to let her story end in silence and shame. She began therapy, sitting across from a gentle, understanding counselor who listened without judgment. In those sessions, Anna poured out her grief, her anger, and her confusion. She spoke of the loneliness that had made her vulnerable, the hope that had blinded her, and the shame that threatened to swallow her whole. Her therapist helped her untangle the web of emotions, reminding her that being targeted was not a reflection of her worth, but of the manipulator's cruelty. Slowly, Anna learned to forgive herself, to see her compassion and openness as strengths rather than weaknesses. Anna also leaned on the support networks she'd discovered online. She joined weekly video calls with other women who had survived similar scams, sharing stories, tears, and hard-won wisdom. In their company, Anna found understanding and acceptance. They celebrated each other's small victories, reporting the scam, reclaiming lost money, or simply making it through another day without self-blame. These connections became a lifeline, a reminder that healing was possible. Even after the deepest betrayal, gradually, Anna began to reconnect with her loved ones. She called her daughter Sophie every day, their conversations growing warmer and more honest. She reached out to friends she'd pushed away, explaining what had happened and allowing herself to be vulnerable. To her relief, they responded with empathy, not judgment. They reminded her of her resilience, her kindness, and the love that still surrounded her as Anna's strength returned. She felt a growing urge to share her story more widely, not just as a warning, but as a way to reclaim her voice. She wrote a heartfelt post for her support group, then for a local women's magazine, detailing her experience and the lessons she'd learned. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from women who had been through similar ordeals, thanking Anna for her honesty and courage. For the first time, Anna felt her pain transforming into purpose. She knew her journey was far from over. There were still days when the memories stung, when trust felt fragile and hope seemed distant. But Anna was no longer defined by what had been taken from her. She was defined by her willingness to heal, to reach out, and to help others find their way back from heartbreak. In picking up the pieces, Anna discovered a new kind of strength, one rooted not in fairy tales, but in the hard, beautiful truth of survival. Justice, Anna quickly learned, was rarely swift or simple. After filing her report in Dubai, she continued to work with authorities back home, providing every scrap of evidence she could gather: screenshots, bank records, emails, and the long winding thread of messages that had once felt like love letters. The investigators were sympathetic, but realistic. International romance scams were notoriously difficult to prosecute. The perpetrators operated from behind layers of fake identities, untraceable phone numbers, and foreign bank accounts. Anna's case was added to a growing file, one of hundreds, perhaps thousands of similar stories. Still, Anna refused to let her experience be just another statistic. She became a vocal advocate, determined to turn her pain into prevention. She worked with local police to give talks at community centers and libraries, sharing her story with women who might otherwise have dismissed such dangers as something that only happened to other people. Anna's honesty and vulnerability struck a chord. She described the warning signs she'd missed: the love bombing, the reluctance to meet in person, the sudden requests for money, and the emotional manipulation that made her doubt her own instincts. Her story was picked up by a local newspaper, then a national morning show. Anna sat in front of cameras, her voice steady but her eyes shining with emotion, as she recounted the details of her ordeal. She spoke not just for herself, but for the countless women who had suffered in silence, too ashamed or afraid to come forward. "If my story can save even one person from going through what I did," she said, "then it's worth sharing." Through her advocacy, Anna learned just how widespread and sophisticated these scams had become. She met with cybercrime experts who explained how organized criminal networks targeted vulnerable people across borders, using technology and psychology to exploit trust. She heard from law enforcement about the challenges of tracking down perpetrators who operated in the shadows, often protected by weak international laws and limited cooperation between countries. But Anna also saw signs of hope. She joined forces with non-profit organizations working to educate the public and support victims. She helped develop online resources and checklists to help others spot the red flags she had missed. She lobbied for stronger regulations on dating platforms and better support for those who had been scammed. Slowly, she saw attitudes begin to change. More women came forward, more conversations were started, and the stigma around being a victim of a romance scam began to fade. Though the man who called himself Imre was never found, Anna found a different kind of justice in the knowledge that her story was making a difference. She had turned her pain into a warning, her vulnerability into a shield for others. The fight against international romance scams was far from over. But Anna had become part of a growing movement, one that refused to let shame or silence win. In exposing the scam, Anna reclaimed her power. She could not undo what had been done, but she could help others see the danger before it was too late. And in that, she found a measure of peace and a renewed sense of purpose. Looking back, Anna sees her journey not just as a story of heartbreak, but as a powerful lesson in resilience and self-worth. She knows now that loneliness can make even the strongest hearts vulnerable, and that hope, while beautiful, must be tempered with caution. Anna's scars remain, but so does her determination to ensure that what happened to her never happens to another woman if she can help it. She urges others to trust their instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Real love doesn't rush or pressure, Anna says. If someone you've never met asks for money, no matter how convincing their story, that's a red flag you can't ignore. She encourages women to talk openly with friends and family about new relationships, to seek advice, and to never let shame keep them silent. Scammers thrive in the shadows. The more we talk, the less power they have. Anna also stresses the importance of self-care and support. Healing takes time, and it's okay to ask for help from professionals, support groups, or loved ones. She reminds viewers that being targeted by a scam is not a reflection of weakness or foolishness, but of being human and open to love. You are not alone, and you are not to blame, she says, her voice steady and full of conviction. Her final message is one of hope and empowerment. Anna has rebuilt her life, stronger and wiser than before. She has found new friendships, rediscovered old passions, and learned to trust herself again. She encourages everyone watching to be vigilant, to educate themselves and others, and to support those who have been hurt. We can't change the past, but we can protect our future and each other. Anna's story is a reminder that even in the aftermath of betrayal, there is always a way forward. By sharing her truth, she has turned pain into purpose. Her call to action is simple, but powerful. If you or someone you know is at risk, speak up. Share your story. Together, we can make sure that no one else has to walk this path alone.